Well, Conor, I have to start off with, where's your Christmas jumper?
I didn't get the memo, Willie. I was told just to dress smart casual.
I'm living, it's like some sort of wind-up here on me.
Looks well on you, mate.
So how's things anyways?
Good, all good, yeah. Probably been a long year, you know, but it's nice now to sit down and reflect back on what was a long and relatively successful year.
Yeah, so how do you spend your downtime, you know, because like you said, it is a long year and you don't have very much of it.
Yeah, I suppose, as you say, you don't get that much time, but, you know, at this time of year, it's just nice to sit down and go out with a few of the lads from around home and do things that normal people do during the year, you know. As I say, you don't get a chance to do that too often, so it's just nice to have a bit of time to yourself.
What's your opinion on, you know, you're saying you go out, meet your friends, and it's almost like some kind of novelty that you're going out to meet your friends, and there's a lot of people talking at the moment about, you know, the life football balance and getting that right. And if you want to meet your friends for a few drinks on a Sunday evening, you know, and watch a match, that you should really be allowed to do it. You know, has it gone too far now that that's kind of been taken away from a lot of players? Well,
to be fair, within our group, you know, and within the Monaghan setup, it's very much a case of you do what you feel is right for the team. There's no barriers, there's no set agendas. Surely, yes, when you're coming up to championship and things like that there, you know, but I think it's a case of if you want to get to where you want to go, you kind of have to knock the socialising on the head a wee bit. You know, it just doesn't mix.
Like you would meet a lot of players in the international rules and stuff. Are these kind of, I call them horror stories almost, of, you know, 3-4 month drink bans? Like that's from your experience, that's not realistic.
Well, it has happened with Monaghan in the past, but at the minute, you know, it's a case of you do what's best for you and what's best for the team. Like Malachy's, in fairness, he's been very good to us that way in regards that he trusts players and he trusts boys to do what's good for the individual and what's good for the team. There's times when you go out after a league game or things like that, but as a general, it doesn't be too often, you know.
So just on your routine, we know about all the gym work, and Ty Kennelly was talking during the week about, you know, there being too much focus on gym work and not enough on football. So for example, for your routine, you know, you do probably, you know, heavy training on the field, Tuesday, Thursdays. Do you do would you be coached on a Saturday and have specific training sessions where you talk about your game plan and, you know, where individual players are told what their job within that is?
Yeah, you would have that. Probably not so much at this time of the year because, you know, at this time of the year and going forward in January, February and throughout the league, it's more, you know, just getting fitness into the legs and getting ready for National League games and things like that. But as the year goes on and the year develops, you know, there's sessions set aside for, you know, for coaching and talk-throughs and drills and things like that there, and, you know, that's all part of it as well.
Yeah, because coaching is such a big thing. And so I wanted to talk to you about, you know, it's crazy when people think about you now as in being a forward that doesn't miss, you know, 2 All-Stars from corner forward, that your first 4 or 5 years in Monaghan you were playing like dogging away at wing back. Like how did that happen? And talk to us about how, you know, you got out of wing back.
I suppose when I was younger and playing juvenile football and all that, I would have always played all my juvenile football as a midfielder in my own age group, and in a couple of years ahead of me I was always in the forward line, and between them two, probably towards the end of my teens and into minor level, I probably didn't develop physically as much as I probably needed to, and I ended up playing as a sort of a wing back in teams maybe a year or two older than me, and I think that I carried that on into my club with Clontibret. As a youngster, I played between half forward and half back for a couple of years, and after my first full year in with Clontibret, I was called into the Monaghan setup, and like that, Banty sort of carried that on, you know, wing back, wing forward type roles, and as I got hit the gym a wee bit more and developed more physically, by the time I was 19, 20, I was sort of drifting towards the full forward line with Clontibret, and it sort of just went from there. I think 2008, I probably, with Clontibret, I was full forward, and I probably haven't been out of there since with either Monaghan or Clontibret. I went into full forward line in 2009 with Monaghan and haven't really come out since.
That was under Banty?
Yeah.
Right, but so he saw you playing full forward for your club, but like, did he not see you in Monaghan training, banging him over from all angles before you'd start training? Like, and go, look here, there might be a full forward in him.
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose we had a couple of full forwards at the time. Like Tommy Freeman was on top of his game back then, so I suppose we.
But you would love to have played beside him.
Yeah, like, and we did. Myself and Tommy played together for 1 or 2 years, but I was probably you know, on the way up. and Tommy was at his peak at that stage, you know, so it would have been nice for the two of us to play together at one stage, but it wasn't to be.
At the peak of your powers.
Yeah. You know,
and so when you went to full forward, and this is interesting to me because I would have gone from wing back to full forward as well. So when you got full forward, like, are you figuring all this out for yourself? You know, what runs to make, how your game suits full forward? You know, how did you kind of become comfortable in the position?
Yeah, well, I suppose, again, it goes back to when I was a juvenile. I would have played a lot of football in the forwards, in the full forward line, so it wasn't totally alien to me either, you know. It was just about getting back at it, and you know, I never really thought too much about it. I just went in and played from there. You know, it wasn't something that I had to go and think about. You know, it probably just came naturally to me because I had played in it as a youngster before, you know.
Yeah, the extra layer then with Monaghan is that the style of football you play, you're going to be double marked, maybe triple marked all the time. So not only are you moving to a new position, you're having to contend with, you know, 3 fellas around you.
Yeah. Well, I suppose like the way club football has gone, you know, this last 5 or 6 years, it's the same thing anyway.
Yeah.
So you're not really coming up against anything different when you play with Monaghan than you are with your club, you know, because that's the way football has gone. And I suppose you just have to get used to that level of attention or whatever. And as you say, maybe a wee bit more figuring out on it now than maybe there was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah. It's all part of the challenge.
Do you enjoy it in there? Like, is it difficult, like, to have the patience to wait? Because you could go 15 minutes without a touch of the ball, whereas when you're wing back, you're always involved in the game.
Yeah,
you're not dependent on someone else to give you the ball.
Yeah, that's the beauty of playing it in the half back line, is that you're always involved, and it's probably you're depending on yourself to get into the game.
Yeah.
Whereas at times when you're playing full forward or in the full forward line, you're dependent on the service you get or whatever. But again, you know, when you have the guys out the field working as hard as they do, you know, you can be sure that you're going to get ball. It might take a couple of minutes, you know, with the way the teams are set up and things like that, but you just have to bide your time and be ready for when it does come, you know. Yeah.
Is the pressure difficult? Because not only are you captain of Monaghan, but like you're responsible for half of their scores as well. So you're going out in the field, and it's not like a normal just one of the other 15, whereas if I play bad, I could get taken off. You know, we could still win. Like, if you play bad, like, it's fair enough to say that Monaghan are in huge trouble.
Well, I don't. To be honest, I don't really say it like that. I honestly don't. You know, it's just you go out and you're part of the team. You know, and you do whatever you can for the team. You know, be it scoring, tackling back, because as forwards nowadays, part of your role is defending. You know, the way teams are set up, counter-attacking and everything else, you can't let your man go, and that's probably your first job. You know, strange and all as it sounds, but the way things has developed over the last 4 or 5 years, you simply can't switch off defensively, and that's probably one of the first things that you have in your head going out on the field. And from that point of view, you can probably play your way into a game as well that wee bit more, you know.
Yeah.
So you're not standing waiting on the ball to come in. Sometimes you have to move with your man and go back and maybe get involved in the game a wee bit more as before. Maybe you'd be standing waiting in the full forward line, you know. Yeah,
just even win a turnover is kind of half of your job as well.
That's part of your job, and I think to an extent that'll help get you into the game, you know, if things aren't going your way, whatever the case is, because you know if you're doing that, you're working as part of the team, and you're getting involved in the game as much as anybody else. We had gone as low as we could, and it's about just building that back up, and Malachy came in and put a bit of confidence into us. From an Ulster person's point of view, you don't want to lose the prestige that is attached with the Ulster Championship.
Talk to us about the Tyrone game this year, because that's, you know, you obviously won the Ulster Championship. I don't want to ignore that completely. But the Tyrone game made massive headlines for all the wrong reasons as well. And, you know, you played against Donegal in the Ulster final, and it was an incredibly intense game, but there was no nastiness in it. Like, what is it about Tyrone that brings out, you know, the kind of worst in both teams? Because, like, you know, there was diving on both sides.
I'm not too sure. I suppose there's an air of familiarity between the two sides, not just this last number of years, but, you know, Monaghan and Tyrone have met, you know, several times, even since I came in 2007. You know, it was my first full year with Monaghan. We played Tyrone in an Ulster final that year. We played them in an Ulster final in 2010 as well. We played them in the championship in 11 and 12, you know, so there's been a fair few meetings between the two teams, and even throughout, you know, juveniles, a lot of them players would have played each other in minor finals, under 21 finals and things like that. So, you know, there's and their border counties as well, you know, so you're going to get that, you know. I suppose, although it was in an All-Ireland quarter final, it was not the championship game really, you know, and you know, everybody knows how tough and intense Ulster football can be at times, and you know, I think that's just all part and parcel of it.
Is there a dislike, you know, between the two squads?
No, like there's any amount of them lads that I'd have went to college with, and a lot of our fellows would have went to college with and would be very friendly with, you know. But once you cross the white line, you're going out to do all you can for Monaghan, and likewise the same for them boys from Tyrone, and you know, you go out and do what you have to do.
Yeah, so like I think Sean Kavanagh came out recently, and he said that some of the things that are said to him on a football field, he wouldn't even like to repeat. You know, when you constantly see verbals going on, you know, you're involved in them, everyone's involved in them. Like, are there really nasty things being said here, or is it just kind of winding each other up?
To be fair, I think most of it is mostly winding up. You know, like you're going to get some people that are going to maybe cross the border and cross the line, but to be honest, generally, is most of it, anything that I've ever been involved in, is you know, you're trying to put boys off their game. That's what happens. That's what players do. But to be honest, most of it is fairly innocuous now.
Yeah, it's demoralising though. You kick a wide and three lads come over and they're pushing you and they're laughing. It's not easy to react to that.
Yeah, I suppose you just have to be ready for it, you know. And that's once you're sort of mentally ready for it, and it doesn't come as a surprise to you then when it does happen, because you know, as I say, it's been going on not just since I started playing football or anything else. It's been on a while now, so it's nothing alien to anybody. Yeah,
so it's actually something you have to like talk about, like as a team, and say, look, be prepared for this.
Even individually, maybe not so much as a team, but you know what's coming down the line in championship football, and you know, most boys, like a lot of our boys, have been around long enough to know now that you can't react to it, and if you do, you're probably letting the team down, you know.
Yeah, because I've seen in the Ulster final where you scored a point, you just tapped Neil McGee in the head, you know, as you say, unlucky buddy. You know, to me that's playful and that's fine. It's when, you know, it gets to the stage where you hear stories that there's actually homework being done and fellas' girlfriends and family and stuff. Like, is that the case?
That's a bit much now. To be fair, I haven't had too much encounters of that there now. So, as I said, anything I've been involved in has been fairly, as you say, friendly, or whatever way you want to put it. Once the game's over, you can shake a man's hand and look him in the eye and wish him all the best, or whatever the case is, you know. So from that point of view, you know, it's just about doing what you have to do in the 70 minutes when you cross the white line.
Yeah, because like obviously Tyrone got a lot of the bad press on the Sunday game that night. But like, I mean, Rory Beggan went down with one of the worst dives I've ever seen as well. He just got away with it. Is there anything said to Rory Beggan in the dressing room, or do you just slag him off, or like do you kind of go, lads, we can't do that?
To be honest, we were after getting beaten, so I don't think we've talked too much about it since, to be honest with you.
Do you think it's an issue creeping into the game? You know, this kind of win at all costs, I'm going to get a fella sent off. Because we never saw it before, and now, you know, there's almost, you see 3 or 4 examples of it creeping in. It wasn't just your game, you know, there was other examples involving Kerry and, you know, different teams, so it's not just unique to Tyrone or Monaghan, but like, is it going this far where players are willing to do literally anything to win?
I don't think players are actually thinking about what they're doing before they go out in the field. Like, no player, I don't think, will ever say, right, before I go out here, I'm going to dive and try and get somebody sent out. It's not what happens, and things happen on the spur of the moment that maybe players wouldn't be proud of when they look back on, or whatever the case is, you know. I think players are investing so much time. We're after talking there about, you know, how much time and effort is going into training nowadays, you know, between gym work and pitch sessions and coaching sessions and your own kicking sessions and different things like that there. Players invest so much time and effort into it that whenever they do get onto the field, I think they just think about winning, and you know, to justify the amount of time and effort that you put into it, you need to be winning, I think. And as I say, it's not something that players go out on the field thinking about, right, I'm going to dive here, I'm going to cheat, or I'm going to do this or that or the other. It's just about, you know, doing what they can for the team, and sometimes you can be right, sometimes you can be wrong. Yeah,
I think I read somewhere that you said after 2012 Monaghan were at a, you know, really low ebb, and players met each other together, and they actually went to the county board, says, we want Malachy O'Rourke.
Yeah.
Is that how it happened?
That's pretty much how it panned out, you know. There was a couple of different candidates in for the job, whatever the case is, but once Malachy had been touted that there was an interest in his end, you know, he had done a little bit of work with a club in Monaghan before, with Owen Lennon's club in Latin, and Owen had a familiarity with him as well. And you know, between the few of the players that met and talked about it, Owen says, look, he was very good with us, and you know, he'd do a great job. And thankfully he came in, and I suppose the rest is history. You know, Malachy he's been excellent with us since he came in, and as I said, we were at a fairly low ebb when he came in. We were after getting relegated twice on the bounce.
Yeah.
And played maybe 4 championship games or 5 championship games in 2 years, which means you know, played 2 in 2012, maybe 3 in 2000, or 2 in 2011 and 3 in 2012, something like that. You know, and losing 4 out of 5. So it wasn't good. Things had slipped badly on us, and you know, as much as players as anything else to be blamed. But you know, we were in Division 3, and I think for the group of players that we had, I don't think it was going to get any worse, because I don't believe no matter what happened we would have went any further.
Yeah.
So it was about we had gone as low as we could, and it's about just building that back up. And Malachy came in and put a bit of confidence into us, and just got us winning and got us going in the right direction again.
Do you think it's important for players to be involved in the process of picking a manager? Because you often hear people saying it's nothing to do with the players, they shouldn't have a say, but you're the ones that have to train under the new manager. You have, like, players know better than say a county board panel who's interviewing a manager who's good or who's talking sense, because you actually know more about what's expected from a manager. So like, my personal opinion is there should always be a player or a recently retired ex-player on picking any manager, you know, rather than say a panel of 3 county board members.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. And even when Malachy came in, it wasn't a case of us going to the county board. To be fair to the county board, they probably came to us and gave us an input on it as well, you know. And as you say, it's the players' lives that you're talking about here as well, because as I've spoken about before, the amount of time and effort you're putting in, you want to be sure. Well, nobody's ever sure, but you want to be fairly confident that, you know, what you're going to be putting in here, you're going to be getting something out of it, and you want to be working with the best possible people that you can, and from a player's point of view, you know, you have to see their point of view on that, you know. How
do you see the state of Gaelic football now? There's a lot of negativity about it. You know, we are coming off a poor championship, a poor year, in my opinion. You know, yourselves in Donegal, you'd say it was a good game. Westmeath and Meath, Cork and Kerry, but you could count on one hand, you know, out of all the games this year, how many good ones. You know, there seems to be big hammerings. Ulster's the only province that's anyway competitive. You know, Dublin are destroying everybody in Leinster. Like, what's the solution here? You see, at club level, you know, it's split into 4 different tiers. You know, is that what's going to have to come in at inter-county level, to have the same teams of the same standard playing each other all the time?
It's very hard to know what, like, you know, this has been talked about now this last 2 or 3 years, how we're going to make the championship more competitive.
What do you want as a player, you know? Well,
to be perfectly honest with you, as a footballer in Ulster, you know, and from probably a selfish point of view, and I'm sure if you asked any of the rest of the players in Ulster in any of the different counties, they're all fairly happy with things as they are to an extent, because, you know, the Ulster Championship is very competitive, and there's a prestige with winning it, because there's so many teams that can win it. You know, it's very much a competition that all the teams in Ulster are vying for at the start of the year, and then you know, you get out of Ulster and you go on ahead to an All-Ireland quarter-final. So from that point of view, it's not too bad from the Ulster players, but then on the flip side of that, though, you have to win 4. Well, and Kerry, for example, Cork have to win 2. Yeah, and even if you look at, I suppose, if you look at Donegal, where they came from this year, you know, they had 4 or 5 really tough games to get to an All-Ireland quarter-final. You know, where they played was Mayo this year, whereas Mayo had played 2 games going into that. But then, you know, if Donegal had to go on and win that game, people would be saying Mayo didn't have enough games. I know, it's hindsight, you know, kind of stuff. But is it fair that the provincial championships are linked into the All-Ireland, or should they be pulled away separately, because there's such an imbalance of the teams that there are these anomalies popping up? Whereas if you pull them away and have them as a standalone competition and then start your All-Ireland, you know, from where every team is starting at the same time, they have the same amount of, you know, games, it would seem an awful lot fairer thing to do. You're not losing your Ulster Championship then. Yeah, it's something that they could possibly look at. It's really difficult, because, again, from an Ulster person's point of view, you don't want to lose the prestige that is attached with the Ulster Championship. And maybe you would if that was to, you know, if you were to remove the Ulster Championship link from the All-Ireland Championship, you know. So
But if it's as competitive and it's as good as it is, he shouldn't really.
Would it be as competitive and as good as it is if it wasn't linked to getting you to an All-Ireland quarter-final?
Yeah.
You're not.
You would hope.
I'm not entirely sure, you know. It probably would be for the first couple of years, but would it lose its prestige then after that? It possibly would, you know. So it's very hard to like, and there's been several different proposals and things like that, you know, and some of them do sound very interesting and would probably shake things up, because, as you said, that you're probably not getting that many good games worth watching until you hit August time, you know.
That's the unfortunate thing about it. And even when we hit August this year, you saw Kildare getting hammered by Kerry. You saw Fermanagh, you know, Dublin were always going to win that. We didn't even get the good quarterfinals that we usually do, you know.
It is something.
There's no appetite in Ulster for change, is basically what you're saying.
No, look, I suppose it's just from my own point of view, you know, having played, like, I'm going into my, 10th year now, 10th or 11th year with Monaghan, and I spent the first 7 or 8 years trying to win an Ulster Championship, and I was coming up short all the time, and then to win 2 in the last 3 years, you're thinking, right, well, if that was taken away, you know, you would have never have got the opportunity to do what we've done with Monaghan in Ulster, and we had waited for 25 years to win one. So from that point of view, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams in Ulster would probably feel the same, you know.
Yeah, unfortunately, from my point of view. Before we finish up, I want to talk to you about your new acting career. We all saw the ad before the Ulster final, to kind of the taken thing.
Da, Conor, how go?
92 years.
I know. Let's do this.
Is this a new direction you might head in?
No, certainly not something I'll be pursuing too heavily. No, it was just something that Michael Cullen in Investec, he'd be our main sponsor in Investec there, and you know, Investec have been excellent with us, you know, with Monaghan since they came in. I think it's in 2009 they've come in, and they've really been excellent. An excellent sponsor, and Michael came up with the idea of doing a promotional video, or whatever the case is, and you know, whenever Michael says to do something, you do it, because no, he's been very good, and I suppose it's just a bit of crack more than anything else.
It's a good idea though, because it is a bit of crack, and you'd like to see more of that kind of thing. There seems to be some sort of fear within the GAA of doing something different, you know, or before an Ulster final, for example, oh well, he's taking the eye off the ball doing an ad like that. That's the kind of attitude that's there.
And there can be that even within players, and I know even myself, before I done it, I was thinking, Jesus, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, or whatever the case. But you know what? If you're focused in the right way, and that.
And you had a fantastic Ulster final.
It shouldn't really affect you too badly, you know, these things. And I think it's good to promote the GAA too, because I think we need more of that within the GAA, and promote the good things that are going on within GAA circles. And I think the more we can promote our game, the better it can be. You know, that video, you know, it went fairly viral throughout Twitter and Facebook and whatnot, and it can only be good for Monaghan, it can only be good for football in general. And I think the more of that you have, the better. And for players, you know, it's not going to really affect them too badly if you're focused and your training and whatnot done.
Yeah.
And I think it was done maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the Ulster final. So it was done and it was parked. I suppose it just happened to reappear before the Ulster final. But from my point of view, I never really looked at it or got involved too much on it. It was just you were focused on the game from there on in.
What I'd love to see, and Monaghan are, you know, one of the better teams at it. Like, whenever you want Malachy, from my point of view, on the sideline before or after a game, he's always available. The players are usually good after a game. There's no like media ban, but it's got to a stage now where a lot of teams are afraid to talk to the media, and they're hiding away, and they think that's productive when it might not necessarily be. Like, I'd love to see a scenario where cameras are actually in the dressing room, like rugby, you know, we've access and we get an insight into what goes on, but there seems to be some sort of fear within the GAA. Like, you know, what secrets are going on in there, you know? Yeah,
well, I definitely think, you know, the media have a massive role to play in GAA and throughout the country, because, you know, as I said, we're trying to promote the game as best we can. The media are doing their job, and as players, I think we have to make ourselves, you know, readily available. Yes, there's times when you need to shut it out and focus on what's ahead of you in terms of championship football, or, you know, whatever's coming up. But as a general, I think there's a sort of a healthy relationship between most players and management and the media, and I think that the longer that continues, the better, you know. Yeah, well, thanks for coming in. Best of luck with the acting career, and Christmas jumper next year. Okay? Christmas jumper next year, promise. Thanks.